and welcome to 3Q the Artist, the podcast designed to go beyond the typical artist interview by asking 3 questions in just 15 minutes. I'm your host, Rachel Vogel, and joining me for tonight's episode is country music star Dylan Schneider. Dylan started performing and writing songs at the age of 14 years old after meeting Brett Eldredge and singing with him on stage during a concert. After that, he began posting videos to social media and quickly gained a devoted online following. Since then, he's made a name for himself in the country music community by being named an artist to watch by Amazon Music, Pandora, Taste of Country, Sounds Like Nashville, and declared country music's next rising star by Billboard. He's toured with several artists, including Florida Georgia Line, Kane Brown, Morgan Wallen, and Dan and Shay. He's scored 2 certified gold records, accumulated over 1.8 million social media followers, and banked in upwards of 350 million on-demand streams and counting. So, Dylan, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Glad you're doing well. So, we do have those 3 questions to get to, but before we jump into those, can you please tell us the Brett Eldredge story? How'd you end up on stage? How old were you? And did that change your life?
Yeah, for sure. So that's always a fun one to tell. And it's one of like the first, I guess, musical like memories I ever had. But basically, I'm from a town in Indiana called Terre Haute, Indiana, and it's about 25 minutes from Brett Eldridge's hometown, just on the border of Indiana and Illinois. It's called Paris, Illinois. And my family and his family had mutual friends back in the day. So we got to meet each other right around the time he put out his first album back in like 2013, I think it was, like late at the end of the year. And they were having like a Brett Eldridge Day celebration for him in Paris. And it was really cool to get to talk to him and get to meet him that first time. And it was actually like 3 days before Christmas, my parents gave me my first acoustic guitar. So I got to take that and have him sign it. And he, encouraged me to keep playing, believe in myself. And, like him being kind of from the same, part of the world that I'm from, it gave me that, I guess belief that I could do it as a small town kid like me from the Midwest. And fast forward a couple of years later, it was the night before my sweet 16th birthday. So I took a sign that said, "My sweet 16 is tomorrow. I want to sing with you." And he was playing a show in my hometown that night. It was kind of like his homecoming show at the arena for the Indiana State Sycamores there in Terre Haute. Indiana State is our like big college back there. So we went to the show and I waited in line for like 2 hours and got front row, and he saw it, and he was like, it was like the last song of the set before they went into their encore, and he like stopped the band. He was like, "Yo, keep going, like play. I'm gonna talk for a second." He was like, "I met a kid a few years ago uh, here, like in Indiana, and I know what it's like to be that kid with a dream. So I want to pull him up here." And he like brought me up, and had me say my name in front of everybody, and then we ended up playing his song "Tell Me Where to Park" together. And yeah, that was like the first like rock star moment. I feel like being on stage in front of like thousands of people, and it was like the first little taste of that feeling. So it definitely changed my life. It made me realize I want to do it forever. It was so cool to get to do that with an idol of mine like Brett, and he's always believed in me ever since then and followed along with my career and stuff like that. So it's a cool one, and it's always like a special one. And just like the way that it went from meeting him to doing that, and then but I think like a year later I got to play a show with him. So
Wow.
it's a cool little story to tell. All the way it progressed through time was pretty cool.
Yeah, I feel like, especially at such a young age, that's definitely one of those moments that you can always look back on and be like, that's where things kind of shifted for me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was definitely an eye-opening moment, like I said, and that first taste of like getting to be on stage and feel that feeling.
All right, let's jump into the first main question. So, I've heard many artists say, I am my music and my music is me. What does that statement mean to you?
Yeah, for me, I feel like over the last few years, just kind of finding myself and growing up and having life experience, I feel like is kind of shown through my music. Uh, I started at such a young age, at like 16, writing, and I always used to like to say I would just kind of write stories, or tell, stories through my music, because I hadn't lived all those, specific scenarios out. But, from heartbreak to, I guess, um, family troubles, family, growth, all these types of things that happen, I feel like, through, such a short amount of time, especially from, like 16 to where I am now 24. It's definitely a coming of age time, I feel like, where you kind of figure out a lot about life. So I think these days right now it's just really honest for me, and it's kind of just I guess a good showcase of, who I've grown into. And if you start from the very beginning and get to where you are now, you can see that change, and I guess that honesty, and in that growth.
Do you ever experience writer's block? How do you kinda cope with that? Is there ever, like, you're going through a period of time and you're like, "Ugh, I just don't wanna write about this. I can't even put it down."
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like sometimes even some, like I said, specific situations and scenarios that I just talked about have been ones that I put off here and there, and are hard to kind of find the right words to say. But I think just kind of sitting there with your thoughts, and getting to the right, spot in life, and finally feeling it's the right time to address those type of things. They come out, and they come out in the right ways. It's like, I grew up playing baseball, so I would say it's like a slump. Like, if you're in a slump, just get through it. You'll get out of it, and you're gonna be back on fire at some point. So it's just those struggles sometimes that you'll face as a creative, I think, in anything. But definitely, it's something that I share along with, I'm sure, many other people.
Next question. Every industry has its dirty little secrets. Those can be both positive and negative. What's one secret you would like to share about the music industry?
I think, as I mentioned, just me starting at such a young age, and at this point now getting to work with so many different people. If somebody was in the same boat as I was, coming to town at 16 or 15, 14, whatever, you just, the biggest thing I've learned is you just got to watch out for yourself. There's a lot of people that, you know, will promise things that will never come true. There's a lot of people that you believe in and have trust in that, could fall through, and there's a lot of greed, and it's not everybody. I think the biggest thing, though, I would have liked to know going in was, watch out for yourself a little bit. So just keep your head on straight and be wary of who you surround yourself with. I think is one of the biggest kind of kept secret, and not really put on, the forefront, especially with, the music industry, entertainment industry in general. You hear about it from time to time, but I feel like a lot of people, that work in this industry, whether it is music, film, anything, could say the same thing. And I just think finally finding the right people to surround me, and going through the motions with so many different things and different people, you got to kind of weed it out, and you got to see what works for you, and make sure you're not being taken advantage of. I think that's just one of the biggest things, and it's sad, but it's true. And, I just hope that everybody can find the right team, as I have, through trial and error. But that's just the way it's kind of been over the last few years. You really you gotta be weary, and you gotta just hang on, and you gotta find those people that believe in you, and are true and honest. And, those are the ones that'll take you to the promised land, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah, going off of that, how have you kind of like approached, you mentioned trial and error. Do you have any tips for any artists starting out, or even those that have been doing it for a while and still can't find the right people? Like, what are the three questions that you always know to ask someone?
Oh man, that's a great question. I guess I would first start out and is like, what do you see in me? And where do you see this going, and what is your idea, and what, obviously, from that, you want to know that somebody is invested and believes in you. And then another one you would want to, I guess, follow up with immediately is, well, what can you do for me at the end of the day? Because I've been in some situations where there's a lot of give, there's a lot of take but no give, sometimes, and I've had to deal with those situations, and they get sour. But you need to be able to, I guess, recognize them when they happen. So I guess I would, yeah, I'd be like, what do you see in me? Why do you believe in me? You want somebody that, show their investment into you, and believe it. And then also, what can they do for you? And you want to know what they're bringing to the table. And then I guess, a third one is, I'd say, how long do you see this lasting, and are we going to stick this out to the end together? Because I've worked with some people that it's fallen through, sadly, and I think that things could have went a lot further. You want to just know that the people are in it for the long haul as well. So I'd say those are three that, like, honestly, through my time in the industry and through working with the people I have worked with, you definitely want to ask those questions and make sure that you're getting honest answers. And there's nothing wrong with taking time either. I feel like, you don't need to rush yourself into anything, because you are you, and your craft is you, and your art is you, and it's always going to be there. So I say, make sure you're making the right decision for yourself before you let people rush you into anything you don't want to be doing. That's another thing that I feel like is definitely should be taken into consideration a lot more by people that just jump in. And I know there's a lot of people right now that are in the industry through getting noticed on the internet. It's similar to the way I did back in the day. So you just quickly meet people, and you quickly are told these things, and you quickly, think that, oh, this is so great, but take your time. Don't ever rush into anything. I think that's a huge, huge thing to consider nowadays.
Yeah, I think those are all great points, especially I think when you mentioned like the longevity of the relationship, especially now with like TikTok, social media, nobody's really thinking about what it could look like a year from now,
Yeah.
but you want to
And
find the
it's
people.
it's so fast paced, and it's so, people find new people every day, or so you want to make sure that what you're doing and what the people want from you are for good reason. I feel like at the end of the day. So that's just to the new generation, the new artists that are coming to Nashville.
All right, final question. So today you are in your early 20s. Now imagine that you've entered the later part of life. You just turned 75 and you're being interviewed for a retrospective on your career and your life in general. What would you hope to be able to say about each?
Oh man. Um, I think when it comes down to it at that point, I would definitely want to look back and make sure that I enjoyed myself through it all. I want to have a lot of good things to say about what I did, and I want to have no regret, as far as the time that I spent, or the I guess attention a career like this takes, and I hope that, with all that in the meantime, life was still worth it. I guess it's a yin and yang of both questions. Is I hope that time was put in, and everything went well with the career, but I also hope that life was lived at the fullest in the meantime. Um, and I hope that, I did get to have some success, and have, some big hit songs, and get to meet so many great fans, which is my favorite thing. And it's just like, the bigger you get, or the more success you have, the more fans you get to meet, the more, you feel like you're making a difference. And I feel like that's always a good, feeling to me, and a good way to give back, because I just love meeting people and people that support me. So I'd hope at that point I had a lot of that, a lot of fans, a lot of success, and a lot of cool people to meet along the way. Um, and I hope that I'm still as close as I am to my family, and career and family life never got in the way of each other. I'm such a family man now. So I hope that my mom and my brothers and sisters, and hopefully a wife, kids someday, maybe, were a huge part of my career, and got to see all that with me. I think that's a really important thing to me, as well as sharing those moments with the people that you come up with, and who you lived your life with. You want to make sure all that is in tandem, I feel like.
You're going to be 75 and telling the Brett story on a podcast like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, that's right. That'd be so cool.
Awesome. Well, we have officially reached the end of the interview, but thank you, Dylan. It's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.